This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, Cam, did you see Tom Brady?
On the yacht, right?
Yeah, did you see him hit the
drone? I saw clips of the video. I didn't watch the whole video, but I saw clips of it.
It's official. He's coming back. That's it. He's taking everybody's job now.
He hit the drone, right? Waiting
That's
for those headlines.
He hit the drone on the first shot. He hit a jet skier 50 yards away from the boat. He's and Sean is the true detective here. He's on the water on a yacht. He must be right here in Miami.
Got to be in Miami, right?
That's it. Cap for Life says Mr. Beast has 100 million subscribers, Big O.
I like Mr. Beast, man. I know there's a lot of different.
I don't know anything about Mr. Beast. This is the first time I've heard of Mr. Beast. I don't know anything about.
He makes a lot of videos where he surprises folks who are usually lesser, what do you call it? Poor folks. Yeah, essentially like poor folks. He'll surprise them with some money or folks who've been struggling. He'll surprise them with tickets to their favorite team, and does it all on video. And so that's typically how he's come up, and he makes videos about it.
That's very nice. That is very cool. Okay. All right. So you know what? I'm going to actually subscribe to the guy. So he actually does some good stuff.
He does a lot of good.
Well, then obviously he makes $1 billion and one. I'm going to subscribe to the guy.
I was about to say, obviously he makes a lot of money from the YouTube subscribers, but he obviously keeps some, and some of it he uses to give back in these sort of videos. And so I like it. I think it's a good part of social media. But the Brady thing was separate. I think this was a way for him to just kind of maximize viewership. And, clearly he did that, because we're sitting here on a Tuesday discussing it.
Well, there ain't a lot of shit to talk about. So,
that is true. And we could talk about the Heat's in the season, or we could talk about Tom Brady hit the drone.
And by the way, a great season for the Heat. That's the way I've come away with it. None of us picked them to go to the finals, dude. And for them to get to this point, others should, like the Heat, have no reason to be disappointed. In Boston or in Milwaukee or in Philadelphia, you can be disappointed that you wanted your team to go farther. But if you're a Heat fan and you're sitting here thinking you were entitled to a title, come on, bro. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great season. They probably, not a lot of people expected them to be there. They might not even fully expect it to be there. Yeah. But it still hurts. I'm sure, there's not really a way around it. You're still going to be hurt. I kind of compare this, like, I've gone through this, right? So I'm a Phillies fan, and so we talk about this. I'm a Sixers fan, obviously, too. The Phillies went to the World Series last year and lost. They were not supposed to make the World Series. They went on a kind of a surprise run. And I think I told you guys this before. I had a conversation with my buddy about whether you appreciate getting to the finals and losing, or are you hurt by getting that close and falling short. For me, I was more hurt that we got that close and lost, whereas he felt like I should be appreciative that we're in the final two. For the Heat, now I'm outside of my fandom. I'm not a Heat fan. I understand more of what he was saying, because now I do feel like the Heat should be appreciative.
Yeah.
Whereas in this same situation, I was more hurt. And so
but you guys had higher aspirations than the Heat did. Because
I don't know that. I don't know if the Phillies did. They were the last wild card team to make it in the playoffs. They were essentially the 8th seed of the MLB playoffs, if there was.
Oh, you're talking about, I'm sorry. I'm
last year.
Sixers. I'm sorry. I'm
confused. No. I was talking about the Phillies. The Sixers always.
Now I get it with this. Yeah, with the Phillies
always disappoint me. The Sixers, I have no. They never surprised me positively. So I was talking about the Phillies.
I guess with the Phillies, the frustrating part is all the money they've spent. You know what I mean? It's kind of like what's going on with the Mets now.
That's true. But the Heat have spent a lot of money too. They just had to sneak under the tax. They're paying Jimmy, Bam, and Lowry, 30 plus.
And they're paying up to the tax. They're not paying any tax. So,
But overall,
that budget's paid for. You know, you're supposed you have that money coming in up until the cap. You know that the rest of that is gravy that you're getting as an owner after that. You know.
Yeah. But overall, man, props to the Nuggets. That was a really good team.
Hey, they deserve it.
The best team all season. And Jokic was unbelievable in the playoffs. Like during the playoffs, there was no question he was the best player. And they played amazing. And so the crazy part is that roster is going to be returning next year. They may lose
Brown.
Yeah, they probably lose Bruce Brown in free agency. He's going to get a nice contract elsewhere. But other than that, they pretty much everybody else is under contract. And so obviously everybody else is going to recharge and some stars are going to get traded. But the Nuggets, that team is great. And I know I've had some fun with Nuggets fans with Jokic versus Embiid and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Embiid,
they don't fear. Nobody fears Jokic.
Yeah, I knew that was going to come up. First of all, Embiid did deserve his MVP. I'm going to make that clear. But I will say, like Jokic was a very scary player in this playoffs, you know, and so that much is very clear. And I also am like happy for the city of Denver. I used to live there. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I covered the Broncos for 2.5 years when I first started. And I remember the Broncos Super Bowl parade when they won it all. And that city is just it's probably an underrated sports fan city because we're so obsessed with the East Coast that sometimes you get a little lost. Denver, to me, is a top tier sports city. And they love it. And they love their Broncos. They love their Nuggets. And so for Nuggets to get their first one, I think is awesome. And so I'm happy for them. Like I said, I can have fun with Embiid and Jokic, but I still do think they're a great team and Jokic is a great player. So happy for them celebrating.
Yeah, they're a fanatical fan base over there. They are crazy about most of their teams. Not all their teams, but most of their teams. All right, dude. What happened? I thought there was supposed to be this desperate line for Dalvin Cook.
Who told you that?
I don't know. All these.
I was about to say. I told you guys.
Fans for months. We've got to trade for him. We got to trade for him. Media people predicting trades for the Dolphins for Dalvin Cook. There was never going to be a trade. There was never going to be any big money. But apparently, as I've been saying for months, that the Dolphins were never going to trade or give big money. But apparently, Cam, nobody wants to give big money.
I also think it's probably not a rush for Dalvin Cook, right? Look, he's not coming to minicamp for any team. And training camp will be the first you see him. So you've got a 6-week period. And I think for him, he's probably just saying, hey, what's the most money I can get in the best spot? I'm with you. I told you, I didn't think that he was set to make $11 million. I didn't think there was $11 million offer sitting there waiting for him from anyone. And I definitely think the Dolphins, whatever they're offering is much lower. And so eventually he's going to have to make a decision. Do I take this, less money, maybe a incentive-based deal to go to Miami or elsewhere, or do I continue to hold and wait for the team that gives me $8, $9, $10 million on the deal? I don't know if it's coming, but he obviously has the ability to wait and see. An injury happens, a team really wants to get aggressive right before training camp, and so not the end of the world for Dolphin fans. You're still waiting and watching, but I don't know that it's something where a Dalvin Cook move can happen any minute, like it's going to happen today. Clearly, there has not been a huge urgency, and we'll kind of see how it goes from there. So,
yeah. Where do you think he goes?
I mean, Miami is still a real possibility. I think a lot of it's going to depend on what he's willing to accept. To me, I think what makes sense for him is a $5-6 million deal with maybe high end incentives that can get him to $7 or $8 million. Maybe $8 million probably would make a lot of sense for him. So not quite the money he had, but not the minimum. And so would Miami go that number? I'm not sure. That may be a little steep, but maybe they make it work. Maybe they stretch. I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot of teams that are willing to give up significant financial resources for a running back. And so once the number starts going down, you start increasing the teams. If it gets down to where he's playing for $2 million, then the Chiefs can get into it. Then the Bills can get into it. Then the Eagles can get into it. If we're playing for no money, then Super Bowl contenders can get into it. But if it's like 5, 6, or if it's 6, 7, 8, you probably limit your teams. And so I don't know if I have a betting favorite at this point. I think the Dolphins are very much in the mix. Maybe the Jets will be in the mix, but I don't know that. Maybe the Broncos will be in the mix, but I don't know if I see a quote unquote favorite right now.
And my prediction is I think Miami gets him only because it's what I've thought. I don't think there's going to be much of a market. I don't think the offers are going to be so enormous that what Miami's going to be offering is going to be slightly less, but you're going to a no tax state. And here's what I would do if I'm him. You sign with Miami and you load up your contract with team incentives, not individual incentives, because you're not going to meet them here, bro. You're sharing time with 3 other backs. And, you know, I look at Denver. Denver actually needs him. Javonte Williams is coming back from an injury. You kind of need this guy, and they're not willing to sign him,
right?
Which is kind of weird. You know what I mean? There's a couple of places. I thought Baltimore is one that I thought maybe they could sign him because their starter is usually injured. And then they also have Gus Edwards, but man, Cook is much more dynamic than Gus Edwards. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's a couple of places that he can go, but I just don't think that there's like the Jets or the Bills. They don't have a lot of money to offer unless they start going into, you know, other people's salaries and start opening up some cap space and mortgaging more of the future. And I don't think anybody really wants to do that for a running back. This is what I've tried to explain on the show. Saquon Barkley can't get a deal. Aaron Jones had to cut from, what was it, 16 or 15 million down to 11.
Yeah, he was supposed to make 17. He dropped to 11.
11. Austin.
But the crazy part, like, I'll stop you just there because I think I've told you the Aaron Jones story. I was with him on Good Morning Football when we were hosting together, and I asked him about that. And the reality is now you look at the market, $11 million is high-end money. But at the time, I'm thinking you're taking a $6 million pay cut when you've been excellent. And he's like, I can't view it that way. I know it's not fair, but I got to view it as, if I'm on the market, what am I going to make? And I can say, hey, I've done this, I've done that. But the reality is you're worth what somebody's going to pay you. And they're not paying running backs $10+ million right now. It's just not the wave that's going on. Saquon Barkley is making a stance right now, which is fine, about the franchise tag, making 10 and change, 10.7, and that he should make more, and that he, is not going to come to minicamp because of it. Fair. All in his right. I'm not sure that a lot of teams are going to line up to pay Saquon Barkley 11, 12, 13, 14+ million dollars on a guaranteed multi-year deal. I just don't know that that's out there. And so, although I respect and understand the view, clearly teams have told us that running backs don't matter. I don't like it. I don't think it's fair, but they clearly think that position is a dime a dozen. And unless you're a Christian McCaffrey, where you're going to rush for 1,000 yards and receive for 1,000 yards potentially, they just don't value that position enough to spend major money.
Hold on. They're not paying a quarterback over there. So they can do those kind of things, okay? That's why. That's the other thing. See, we got to talk business when we talk football too. And that's what people have to understand, whether it's media or fans. Sometimes other decisions are made because fiscally you're making another kind of a decision. If they had a top-tier quarterback that they were paying, no way they trade for McCaffrey. But because they had a 6th or 7th round pick, right? He was like Mr. Irrelevant, right? They had a 7th round pick playing in Purdy. They said, oh, let's help this kid out with as much as possible. We're not paying the quarterback. We can do that. And by the way, your guy, Derrick Henry's available. If anybody is a Derrick Henry away from a title, well, why don't you go trade for him?
They're not going to give him away.
He's got 1 year left. He clearly told them last year, I need you to pass me the ball more, because he caught the ball better than he ever did his entire career, because he knew he's headed to free agency. I love the intelligence. And the guy is ready to go. He's the most mismatched running back there is in the NFL.
Yeah.
They won't give him a new deal, and nobody trades for him. Austin Eckler wanted more money. Chargers aren't, well, they're cheap anyways, but Chargers, nobody else wanted to trade for him. And they let him go and search for a deal. Running backs are not valued, bro, no matter what. And it's funny because the McCaffrey situation, some people brought it up, but they don't bring up the fact, they don't realize the fact that they're not paying a quarterback, and that's why they did, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the market's interesting. Derrick Henry, I think, is a one-of-a-kind back because he's the face of that team. But you're right. I mean, the reality is Derrick Henry's 29, and I just don't know there's a lot of urgency in Tennessee for them to extend him. And so they're probably going to go through this year and see how it flows. And if they're out of the race, maybe he's a trade deadline candidate, or maybe he reaches free agency and they say, hey, test your worth. But for a guy like him, this is sort of the perils of running back position. Because he's so physical, because he takes that much pain, he's probably on a year to year as far as guarantees,
right?
Pretty much for the rest of his career. It's not fair, but he's probably going to get a nice number, but it's probably going to be on a 1 year deal. My guess in free agency, he signs a 1 year, $10 million deal, something like that, right? And he'll be on the higher end, but it's still 1 year. It's just kind of the way the market is going.
I'm Baltimore. I would have signed his ass.
Yeah. Well, you got to trade for him now. Tennessee's not going to give him away. They still value him.
I would have traded for him. It's not like you have to give up the world because everybody knows you're not signing him, so he's going to be gone.
Right. You're not going to have to give up the world, but they're not going to say, hey, we're going to give you away for a 6th round pick.
Although I can see them really screwing him over by tagging him next year.
That's possible. The tag number is still 10, 11 million. That's the same thing I was saying. A 1 year deal for 10 or 11 million dollars doesn't give you much guarantees, but it still allows you to stay. And you're paying them the eighth
for that beast. For that beast, it's well worth it. And by the way, they're also not paying a quarterback next year.
Yeah. Tannehill's last year.
Gone. And then you'll have young quarterbacks, so you can actually. That's probably what they're going to do. You know what? I just nailed it. They lose Tannehill, right? He's gone in free agency, so that opens up $30 million. So now you say, okay, now we can tag Henry at 10.5 and keep him for our young quarterbacks and keep going. And probably, like you just said, year to year, they have 3 tags they can use on him, 3 straight years. Yeah. If they feel.
And by the time he'll be 32, 30, 31, 32, and that's probably it anyway.
Yeah, he probably has 1 to 3 dominant years left.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but it's just crazy how, and this is why I try to explain to Dolphin fans out there that we're so starved for we got to trade for him. Oh, we got to sign him. And it's just not a Dalvin Cook thing. It's just that entire position, dude. There's total apathy for that position. It's so interchangeable that there's no desperation for a running back nowadays.
Right.
So it's crazy. All right. What else are we expecting from the Dolphins here over the next couple of weeks? Are you expecting any kind of moves, offensive line, anything out there coming out of minicamp?
Expecting vacation, man. I think this is a real light period for the Dolphins and for teams. And so you see teams taking visits with DeAndre Hopkins, the Dalvin Cook conversation. And so maybe if there's a big name guy who says, I want to sign before training camp, maybe they do it earlier. But typically those signings happen in July, closer to the start of training camp. A week or 2 before training camp will get you in there. There's nothing they're doing together in this 6-week period anyway. And so I think that you guys can go to the beach, take a walk. I don't think there's going to be a ton going on over the next month.
By the way, what'd you think of Tua physically overall? Now that we got to see him up close here a couple times over the last few weeks.
Yeah, he's bigger. He's definitely stronger. The only question I have, and we didn't get to see it much because it's still the offseason, is what's his mobility? Is his mobility impacted at all by adding a little weight? I know it's more muscle than anything, but if you put on a little weight, the question is, hey, are you still the same speed as a passer, speed as a runner if you need him? Obviously, you don't want him to run a ton, but as far as your movement inside the pocket, that's really the only question. But yeah, he looks stronger. I like that for him because you can take and withstand a lot of hits. Sounds like Mike McDaniel likes it. And you get to see a little, you're seeing more and more of Tua of who he is. I like the fun Polaroid joke. There's a lot going on about the cameras. I don't know if it was a Mike McDaniel idea or a Tua idea, but you put the Polaroid on top of your head and have fun with it. He's clearly aware of everything that's going on in conversations about him, and he knows what gets the clicks and what gets the attention on TV based on what he says, and he's having fun with it. And so it's just, April, May, June. We know the big question with Tua is, can he stay healthy? And we won't find that out until really the end of the season. And we'll answer looking back, did he stay healthy? But right now, I think from what you've seen from Tua, he's looking good. He's everything you'd want going into this year 2 of Mike McDaniel's scheme.
How concerned should we be about Connor Williams' holdout?
I think a moderate level of concern. I think mostly because the offensive line was already a huge issue in my mind. I don't want to say huge. I would say it's their biggest issue in my mind is the offensive line. And so that was one of the spots that I felt good about, the center spot. And so you lose a little bit of cohesiveness there, which has me a little worried. And then you worry, does it go into training camp? If it goes into training camp, that meter goes a little higher because now you're starting to create a little bit of disdain and chemistry within that locker room. But I get a feel that they'll figure something out. They've done it for Xavier last year or 2 years ago. I think they'll figure out something, a little sweetener. Maybe it's a little incentives. You can get up to this, or we'll add an extra $1 million or something. But I think they figure it out. I can't imagine that it's so far away. But right now, I'd say, this is probably a moderate concern.
All right, follow him on Twitter at Cameron Wolfe and catch him on the NFL Network as he chases Tom Brady around knocking down drones. Cam, enjoy yourself, my brother. We will catch up later on in the week.
Thank you. Sure. Appreciate you, man.
You got it. There you go. Cameron Wolfe, and we talk about KSDT CPAs. They do it all from property management to wealth management, valuation when it comes to tax. They do domestic and international tax, assurance with accounting services, from QuickBooks to bill paying services to bookkeeping services to cash flow analysis, assurances like internal audits of financial statements. They do it all, every aspect of personal and business taxes they can help you out with. Please reach out to our friends at KSDT CPAs. They've got offices in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. They're also opening up an office in North Carolina. They are expanding as we speak. 305-670-3370. That's 305-670-3370 for KSDT CPA.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.